Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the Group 1 term project presentation on one of the most popular tropical agricultural products in the world, pineapple. In this presentation, we use food system modeling and analysis research in order to uncover the prominent production and consumption aspects of pineapple, in addition to its roles in larger food systems and global systems in general, and its impact on the supply chain. Lastly, we offer considerations to improve the sustainability of the product as a whole. All right, now here is a brief background and history on pineapples. According to FAO statistics, the pineapple ranks 11th as the most widely produced fruit globally. In regard to the global production of tropical fruits explicitly, pineapple ranks second behind mangoes, and this does not include the production of bananas. The now heavily exported and produced fruit was first believed to have been cultivated around 2000 BCE around the Paraná-Paraguay River Basin, near the present-day borders of Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, and Paraguay by the Tupi-Guarani people. Today, the top pineapple producing countries are Costa Rica, the Philippines, and Brazil. The modern cultivation, production, and expansion of pineapple was heavily influenced by colonization and the transatlantic trade. When Europeans and other colonizers first encountered the pineapple when they arrived in South America and the Caribbean, there was an immediate appeal of the tropical fruit due to its natural sweetness, pleasing fragrant aroma, and its physical exotic appearance. The European elite class specifically was very captivated by the tropical fruit. Pineapple became a delicacy amongst the European elite class as it was a symbol of power, wealth, and hospitality due to the scarcity of access to the pineapple at the time. The impacts of colonial imperialism and the rise of agricultural plantations and colonies, plus key technological advancements in transporting cargo, for example, the invention of steamships and the Wardian case for more efficient transport, is what has led to the mass popularity and commercialization of pineapple we see today. Although the pineapple industry has had significant influence in the growth of emerging economies in tropical and subtropical regions, it also carries very complex politics as the industry continues to contribute to numerous human and environmental health concerns. For example, pineapple plantations in places like Costa Rica and Hawaii have caused significant displacement of indigenous populations, has worsened water and food security, and participates in environmentally damaging agricultural practices like the use of monocropping and intensive pesticides. In summation, the pineapple is a very interesting agricultural product that holds a unique, fascinating, and complex history.
Moving on to pineapple production. Needless to say, the pineapple is a loved and desired fruit universally, leading to its drastic demand throughout the world. Unfortunately, the pineapple can only grow and develop in specific weather conditions, as well as requires significant laborious efforts. Thus, the production and consumption systems of the pineapple conduct quite variably globally. The majority of fresh pineapples sold on the world market are produced in Latin America, with 84% grown in Costa Rica. The majority of production is on large-scale monoculture plantations owned by a small number of national and multinational fruit companies. In fact, the Del Monte Fruit Company and its subsidiaries produce over 50% of Costa Rica's pineapple exports. Smaller producers do exist, but many are facing high debts and bankruptcy. It is important to note that most U.S.-grown pineapple still comes from either Hawaii or Puerto Rico, though there are small-scale production parts still ongoing in parts of Florida and California. The bulk of pineapple consumed in the United States comes from imports by way of Central and South American or Mexican grower shippers. In recent years, the world pineapple market has expanded rapidly, with production increasing by nearly 50% since 1998. According to FAO statistics, pineapples are the 11th most cultivated fruit, with over 24.8 million tons being produced in 2013. It is also important to note that most exported pineapples are grown by banana-producing companies, often on former banana plantations, employing the same workers and using the same transport and distribution networks. Large-scale pineapple production has the same environmentally damaging effects as banana production, and workers also face the same social and economic difficulties. Moving to pineapple consumption, Brazilians are the biggest pineapple consumers worldwide. Around 11% of the worldwide volume is consumed in the South American country. Next in the ranking are the Philippines and Indonesia, which both account for 8% of consumption, followed by India 7% and China 6%. The top 5 countries that paid the most for imported pineapples during 2020 are listed below, with the United States serving number 1 paying $717 million. This accounts for 29.3% of total imported pineapples. Essentially, among the above countries, there were two growth markets for pineapples from 2019 to 2020, namely the United States, which was up to 0.4%, and Japan, which was up 0.1%. However, the countries that posted declines in their imported pineapple purchases were led by China, which was down 25.8%, as well as the United Arab Emirates, which is down 24.4%, and Portugal, which was down 19.5%. And lastly, here is a bar chart showing the per capita consumption of fresh pineapples in the United States from 2000 to 2019 in pounds. So as you can see, from 2000 to 2019, there's a drastic increase from 3.22 to 7.62. However, towards the end, you could see those levels kind of stabling out.
Systems in the supply chain of the pineapple. Pineapple is grown in great quantities for export. Pineapple supply and demand can be impacted by many different variables. For example, pineapple production, which accounts for approximately 74% of global output, has remained stable until recently. Since 2000, Colombia, Mexico, China, the Philippines, and India have had increased production rates. There was a sharp decline from 2006 to 2009 in Thailand and Brazil, but then they bounced back in around 2010. And finally, between 2007 and 2010, Costa Rica, Indonesia, and Nigeria, their production grew pretty steadily. Yet, in the past year, due to the pandemic, like a lot of other supply chains, there was fewer than half the typical amount of pineapple production due to transportation concerns as well as supply chain issues, which included a lower demand, but prices weren't unusual. There was just the deflation happening throughout the years, and this time there just wasn't as quickly as a recovery happening. Yet throughout the holidays and certain seasons in a different country, there is an increased demand in certain areas, but there still continues to be that shortage persist due to the growers' lack of interest in initiating new planting and labor. And a lot of this is due to pineapple cultivation is very time intensive. So the fruit actually needs between 14 and 18 months before it reaches full maturity and it's time to harvest. The pineapples are growing in the best tropical areas, which is a vast majority of why pineapples come from countries similar to Costa Rica and that climate. And so when the prices are low, growers get discouraged and they don't maintain the plants. There are several quality standards for pineapple that happen before they are able to be packaged and sold. Pineapples are graded by the degree of skin coloration, the size, if there is an absence of defects and disease, and the uniformity of characteristics before packaging. Other characteristics include maturity, the firmness, the shape, flat eyes, broken stems, and this is approved before distribution. Distribution happens then through air freight transportation, where they are grouped and transported to the airport, loaded onto air pallets, and delivered to markets. The importers sell fruits and go straight to distribution sector, purchasing centers, and wholesalers. As for their sea freight transport, where sea freight pineapples travel more of a lengthier route, they are washed, packaged by size after harvest. Given an extended travel period, they are palletized and pre-cooled and reduced core temperature. The onboarding includes refrigeration and containers of the pallets, and they are transported to the importer, supermarkets, and directly to the final destination. And so you can see here if there's a labor shortage overall within transportation or within the workers, a lot of that is going to affect the pineapple supply chain. And as well, another variable that can affect the supply chain is natural events such as floods, droughts, disease outbreaks that can happen during production. This is often limited due to location, like we mentioned, pineapples being grown in those warmer climates, and then not being able to compensate for that. So hopefully the pineapple supply and demand will rebalance within the next couple of years. But like we mentioned, the intensity of labor, cultivation and transportation due to the impact of COVID-19, as well as the shift in demands are creating some issues within the market.
My name is Michaela, and I'm going to be talking about sustainability considerations. And to introduce this subject, I kind of wanted to talk about what pineapple is to the culture. Um, well, there's many cultures worldwide, but pineapple can be a part of them in many different ways. Kind of a tropical look to them. They can be used in many different culinary subjects. They're seen as a very desirable fruit. Pineapple can be bought in grocery stores, fresh and canned. Most pineapples are used to eat, of course. American colonists originally brought pineapples from the Caribbean islands, and that's why pineapple is seen as a symbol of hospitality, because all the work that went into bringing the pineapple to your house to kind of show your guest all the work you put into bringing that for them. Pineapple is now mainly produced in Latin America. Unfortunately, pineapple still requires a lot of time and energy to produce and transport. It has a lot of damaging effects on the environment, which we'll talk about, and causes social and economic difficulties. To kind of dive into economic issues, pineapple majority of exported pineapples are grown by companies and plantations that previously have grown bananas. As you may know, large-scale production of any sort has detrimental effects, and pineapple is one of those large-scale production industries. Has a lot of detrimental effects on the environment and laborers. Workers tend to face inhumane conditions while working in the pineapple industry, which can include exposure to toxins and pesticides. They work very long hours for very small pay. There's a lot of, what's it called? There's a lot of, sorry. There's consequences that go with that. So because of those pesticides, there's now water contamination. For instance, a monopoly of pineapples, this company called Del Monte, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of it. Its logo is on the left right here. Is responsible for 50% of pineapple exports from Costa Rica. And then the other 50% is from smaller minority companies, which most of them face debt and bankruptcy, and they have no power in the industry. So the bigger monopolies make all the decisions. And to kind of give you an idea of where the money goes for pineapples, for every dollar you spend on a pineapple, retailers get 41 cents, international traders get 38 cents, and plantation owners get 17 cents. And then workers are only left with 4 cents. There's kind of a image in the upper left corner to show you the breakdown of more visually. So now I'm going to go into environmental and social issues that pineapples impose. So as many of you already know, monoculture is a huge issue, and using those practices lead to negative environmental impacts, such as contamination of local water sources, and then social erosion, and decrease of soil diversity, which is a different issue, sedimentation and deforestation. For every kilo of pineapple, 1 kilo of carbon dioxide is put into the atmosphere. there's a lot of health impacts that come from that, such as skin disease, respiratory problems, gastric illnesses, birth defects, etc. Those have all been reported from these local communities around the plantations. And it's really devastating to hear because they can't do anything about it. Um, there's also reports of agrochemical accidents, like chemical spills into nearby water sources because of explosions of the sites that hold the pesticides and things like that, which then enter into the sea eventually. And then, yeah, it's just a huge issue. And also, whenever there are spill offs from the plantation because of rain, then that those pesticides get into the local water sources, and then they kill the fish, which most of the local communities rely on for food. They fish in those bodies of water to get their daily food, which they can now not do because they're filled with dead fish. There are 10 to 15 times more pesticides used by Dole than other herbicides used in other crops. To give you an idea of how much that is, on average, Costa Rica uses 18.2 kilograms of pesticides per hectare of cropland, and the US uses more like 2.5 kilograms per hectare of cultivated land. And then an agrochemical expert at the University of Costa Rica states that it's dangerous for the environment and human health to be using this much pesticides. Yeah, it's just something that needs to get attention. There's at least 16 different types of chemical treatments that are needed to even grow pineapples, some of them being carbofuran, etc. These pesticides will disrupt hormones, cause cancer, and are toxic. Not only are local communities affected by these toxins, the workers are also being poisoned by them. And most of the time, they're too afraid to speak out because they don't want to get fired. In one instance, a man said he gets paid about $168 for 2 weeks, which is equal to the bills he has to pay, including electricity, water, and life insurance. Just the bare necessities to get by. Pineapples, many people may say that it creates a lot of jobs, but the working conditions are so poor that most workers are migrants and sometimes illegal migrants, and most of them don't get many days off at all. Right, that's all for sustainability. To conclude everything, there's a lot of work that goes into putting a pineapple in your local grocery store. There's a lot of detrimental effects that come from having a pineapple in a grocery store. And not only are there environmental necessities that need to have, like conditions that the pineapple needs to thrive, it also takes over a year to harvest it. And once it does get to you, a ripe uncut pineapple will stay good for 2-3 days, and then after it's cut, you have 5 to 7 days refrigerated until it goes bad, which doesn't seem like that much time for you to eat it, which could lead to food waste. You may ask, is it even possible for pineapples to be sustainable at all? After all I've heard, it can be possible. There is always room for improvement. We read about the idea of using shipping containers to cultivate different plants and things, but pineapples are in such high demand that there's such massive amounts that need to be made that you need more larger versions of those facilities in order to solve the issue of the environmental impact that would need to be met. We would think that there's ways to use permaculture instead of monoculture to improve the sustainability issues. But it's hard to know if it's realistic, if it's actually going to happen. Something that you can start on today is just buying locally grown fruit instead of pineapple. to kind of decrease the demand, or buy, if you really need pineapple, buy organic pineapple to avoid supporting monoculture to reduce greenhouse emissions.